So, yeah, so I guess I saw your play last Friday. I didn't know anything going into the play, but I follow the spot pretty. I go to all their shows, so I was like,
That's
oh,
great.
I might as well go. And I saw your show, and it just really moved me. And I thought, I'm creating this blog about human connection and people connecting back to themselves and how that heals us.
Sure.
And I thought that what you did was really healing, and I thought maybe you could kind of share your journey of how you wrote it and how it became to be. I read online that it was supposed to be a book before, but then it became a play. And I think
Right.
yeah, I mean, it's such a more intimate setting, but yeah, if you could kind of go in on that, that would be awesome.
Sure. Um, yeah, so when I had the lumpectomy, as you know, the trifecta of stuff that happened. So when I had the
Yeah.
lumpectomy, um, I started writing a blog, which, who doesn't write a blog? And then two, who doesn't go through cancer and write a blog? Zero people. So I
Yeah.
started writing that, and primarily just for me to clear my head, and also for a place for people to be able to like go find information, so that I wasn't in a constant state of like, let me tell you the story, let me tell you the story. It's like, go read the thing and then you'll know the story. Like that was sort of the thing. And it was just profoundly cathartic to be able to do in real time, to like every day blast off what that felt like, or what was going on, or what that was all about. And so that was how I started it. So I did that through the whole first, second rounds, and then once I was sort of done with treatment and kind of, released back out into the wild, I sort of quit writing with that. Um, and then, 5 years later, when the next go round started, I dove back in and just started adding to that. And so through the course of this process, I mean, a lot of people were really moved by it. People were really touched by it, which is great. And I was just talking to someone today. Um, it's you do that stuff for yourself. I mean, it's a lovely bonus if other people get something out of it, but that is not the motivating
Yeah.
factor. Like, this is really all about me being able to process what the hell was going on. And then it was just great
Yeah.
that people were also getting something from that situation. So then I started thinking, and people kept saying, "Oh my God, it was really moving. You should write a book." And I'm like, no, I don't really want to do that. And then it dawned on me, it's like, well, the whole thing is written. Like, there's nothing for you to do, because I'm also a very, very lazy person. So it was like, I don't have to actually write a thing. It's already there. It just needs to be stitched together in some sort of capacity. So I
Hmm.
started working with an editor, a really good friend of mine, Elizabeth Sharp McKetta, who's a writer and poet, and she was kind of helping me with that. And then, like you read in the, or heard at the program, then I did a reading of that, and it became very clear that it was a one-person show. Um, and so now it's just been, this endless process of refining and sharpening and clearing and cleaning and doing all that stuff. So I never set out to write anything. I did not purposefully write a show. Although now that is of interest to me, because I have some other ideas of things, and I'm like, what would that look like if you actually like did it on purpose? That might be kind of interesting. And thank God that I wrote, I barfed that up in real time every single day. So it was
Uh-huh.
so visceral. There's no way I could cast back now and try
Yeah.
and recreate what chemo felt like that day, how my brain
Hmm.
exploded, when I was, being held underwater and looked at what a shitty person I am all the time. I mean, I would never have been able to remember those things, or to be able
Yeah.
to go back and be able to capture that. So um, I'm very grateful, because I mean, even as I was writing it, I was like, wow, um, this is a very particular sort of experience that I mean, and everybody's experience is very different. And I try and be very clear about that. Like, this is my experience, and I am a very sensory, visual, I just sort of walk around in a hallucinating sort of space all the time that has nothing to do with drugs. It's just sort of like how I move through the world. And so that's my
Yeah.
experience.
Uh-huh.
And it was really fascinating to hear from so many people that they're like, oh yeah, I would have never been able to put words to that weird thing. And then I heard you say it, and it was like, oh yeah, that is actually very much what that experience was like for me.
Yeah.
So.
I think it's so cool how raw it was. I felt, hearing that it was a book before and that you turned it into a play, I thought it was, I don't know, I thought it was really cool, the aspect of like taking, what you've written, I guess you said it was like day to day kind of thing, like
Right.
almost like journaling,
Like
right,
like journal entries, exactly.
Yeah, and then producing that into, real, live, emotion that people are reacting to. I think it's a side of, everybody knows somebody that's had cancer, and a lot of people have known people that have died from cancer. And I don't think you hear that side of the story from people of how like raw it is and like the day-to-day stuff. And I think, it took a lot of courage to, stand up in front of an audience and do that. So I just think it's totally awesome.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's really cool. So you started in Boise and then you come to Ketchum. Do you have any plans kind of for future stuff? Or I think you're going somewhere in New York in the fall, right?
Yeah, I got into the United Solo Fest in New York, which is the biggest one-person play festival in the world. And yeah, I got into that, which was super cool. You have to apply for it.
Oh,
So
wow. Cool.
So I'm doing a performance October 20th in New York, which is, I'm very excited about doing that. And again, a very small space, I think like a 50, 60 seat theater on Theater Row. So that will be a really cool thing. And then I think like after the first of the year, I at this point, I just kind of want to sit with this, do the thing in New York, and then to be able to say, fresh from Solo Fest in New York, and then next year after the first of the year, look at some other cities, maybe like, Portland, Seattle, LA, San Francisco, Chicago. Those are kind of the big 5 that are popping up on my radar. And same thing, like take them to small black box theaters, self-produced kind of thing. And yeah, share it a little bit more, a little more out there for me to have the experience of, continuing to refine this, which has been a super fascinating process as an actor. And it's sort of a mildly schizophrenic thing of, yes, that is a true story, is a totally true story, and it's my story, and it happened to me. And I'm also sort of oddly like, 2 degrees removed of a version of me telling a story of a thing. So there's a performative aspect to it, even as it's totally real. It's a weird thing to explain. Because it's not a character, it's not a character.
Yeah.
But it's also a version of me telling a story of a thing that actually happened to me.
Yeah, I have to say, like, when I first got there and you started telling the story, I didn't know that you had written it about your life. And I was like, yeah. I was like, I wonder if she, if this is like her acting or if this is like about her. And then, I feel like I kind of realized maybe like a third of the way through, I was like, I think this is like really about her life.
Oh my God, that's great. That's really cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think sometimes I'm sort of oblivious, like I'm so in the middle of whatever the thing is. It seems like it should be glaringly obvious to everyone else, but that's just, it's just obvious in my head. Doesn't necessarily mean I have, translated that out for other people to understand that that's actually what's going on. So
Yeah. Do you feel like it's like emotionally releasing for you to perform this and like have written it and get your story out there? Like, I mean, my father, he passed away from cancer, and
Oh shit, I'm
I
sorry.
it's okay. I mean, it's 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 not okay. It happened. Like, everybody has had cancer. Somebody has had cancer.
Right.
Um, but yeah, I mean, I think I never really knew what he was going through because I was younger at the time, and I
Sure.
thought that I wonder like how he would have um emotionally released it because we never really talked about it or anything. So I find that
Right.
aspect interesting of how you kind of dealt with. Is this your way of like dealing with cancer?
Um, yes, and for me, I mean, quite honestly, I feel like the play has so little to do with cancer. Um,
Hmm.
that it is so much more about, a woman trying to learn to take care of herself and bad relationship choices and having no boundaries and totally overgiving of herself and like doing too much and not having any sort
Yeah.
of sense of balance at all in her life. And
Hmm.
that through the process of this, um, not because, I mean, as I say at one point, I don't believe that there's a reason for that. Like, I just don't believe that. I think the only reason is like, what do you do with it? It's not like, the universe was like, let's trick her and see like if she'll like rise to the occasion. Like, I don't believe in any of that shit at all.
Yeah.
But I believe that anything that crosses its path with you, what are you going to do with it? How are you going to navigate that? Um, that's really kind of all that there is in that process. And so, in the telling of this, um, it's so weird. I was trying to explain this to someone the other day because it's all true. I'm not changing the story as I am editing it. I'm not putting a different spin on it or like adding information or anything. But there seems to be like in the repetition of the thing, as you find the proper way to the proper inflection, the proper way to be real and not grasp or push it for anything emotionally, that it's real as it does that, that the more that you keep finding the proper notes to hit, it's like turning the tumblers in a lock. Like, you get the opportunity to open something up in a way that it's like, I did I did that right. And in the
Hmm.
doing of the thing to the best of the ability that I can do the thing allows me to like step out and off and onward and forward. Um, I don't know if that makes the slightest bit of sense. It's kind of just barely beginning to make sense to me, but there's something really uh, cathartic, not just in telling that story, but in the way, like figuring out how to tell it. That's like, oh, you got it right. Like, if you get it
Hmm.
just right, then that's healing for you, and then everyone else gets the experience of the right the right thing, and then that sort of unlocks something that allows everybody to like move forward in some sort of capacity.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's super powerful. What you're saying, and I think your story unlocks things, and the people that see your show. Um, I know it did in me. Like, I walked out of there, telling a few people about it, and like just kind of continuously thinking about, kind of just like, you're pushing forward, but also learning every day, something different, and
Sure. Sure.
yeah, learning more kind of about yourself. I mean, I think we're all kind of on this like self journey. It's just like how you kind of take it. And
Absolutely. And I feel like that's, again, like I said, I mean, even though cancer is sort of the scaffolding of the story, I feel like
mhm.
it's uh, way more about just sort of personal growth and journey of like, ooh, things not to do. People to like not have in your life, things to say no to and like walk
The
away
man
from.
child.
Oh God. Yeah, like those sorts of things. And
Mhm.
I just, yeah, I just sort of think that I lost my train of thought. Yes, just that there is something cathartic and clearing about that. And
Mhm.
and it's really lovely to have that whole audience was just so riveted on point that then there's like an even greater sense of like really wanting to tend to the room. Uh,
Mhm. I mean, yeah. I mean, even though it's kind of I mean, somewhat of a darker journey, I feel like the way you presented it, I mean, I feel like the audience was laughing, the whole
yes,
time.
right,
you know?
right. Which
Yeah, it
was,
was.
that's part of the thing too, is just it's the nature of the absurdity absurdity and wildness and randomness of life and what happens
Yeah.
to you and what do you do with it and how do you ride through that, and not in any sort of belittling way at all. I'm not being dismissive of the fact that, cancer annihilates an unbelievable amount of people. I mean, you know,
Hmm.
everybody has had some sort of experience with that. And I'm not trying to
Yeah.
be dismissive of that in any sort of way, but also just sort of like, yeah, and how do you then navigate your life and not live in a constant state of terror, or be able to show up for people when they're in those places, and love them and feed them and not freak out and then make the person who's having the experience have to then like turn around and babysit and like make sure that everybody else is okay. um
Hmm.
that's not that's not a thing, shouldn't be a
Yeah.
thing. um yeah.
Yeah. I feel like if you don't laugh at things, then what are you gonna do? You're just gonna.
Exactly, what else?
Yeah.
And
So
that was very
yeah. I mean.
important to me
Mhm.
in like from the beginning of the story of that, yes, heavy subject matter, but it is not a sad bastard cancer story. And so to like come out of the gate, um allowing people to be like, oh God, this is funny and weird and going in some other direction, to just kind of get the audience at ease of like, oh, okay, I'm not quite sure what this is, but it's going to be a bunch of unexpected stuff. And some of it is that it's funny. And you can feel the whole room kind of relax into trusting the unfolding of the story a
Mhm.
little bit more in that. So,
Well, I think it's super cool how you present it and the timeline that you work through, and that you make it so light, but also talk about a really serious topic and talk about like your journey and um, getting out of it what you did. And I think it's really cool. And I mean, the fact that you can perform like a one woman show too is really awesome. I just, I didn't know going into it what it was going to be about. I just read, that you had breast cancer and that it was,
right.
your journey, and that
Right.
was it. And I was pleasantly surprised. I feel like it
That's
really moved
great.
me. Yeah.
And I've heard that from a lot of people that they were like, I had
Awesome.
no idea what I was walking into. And
Yeah.
that's great. That's great.
Cool. Um, yeah, that's super awesome. Let's see if I wrote down a couple little questions.
Sure.
Um, let's see. Oh, so I guess I did want to ask you, were you an actress before this, or did
Yes.
you? Okay. Gotcha. So you had that kind of artistic, a bit like, I don't know, influence, I guess, before you took it on.
Yeah, that's always been a huge part of my world. And so yeah, which I think that also sort of made when I did the reading and sort of discovered that I did a one woman show, I'm like, you idiot, you're an actor. Like, of course you did. Like, how did you think that you wrote a book? Like, that's not your wheelhouse.
Mm-hmm.
So that was very, it was funny and also very satisfying to be like, oh yeah, of course, this is the format in which this should probably
Yeah, it was
happen.
really natural for you then to take it on.
Yeah.
Cool. So you perform mostly in Boise, or that's where you've performed before?
Yeah. I do lots of, I love theater, so I do a lot of theater. Done some, little independent films and lots of commercials and voiceovers and,
Cool.
all of those kinds of things. And so, yeah, that's a part of my world. And I'm a Thai massage therapist, so those are my two jobs. So
cool.
yeah.
Yeah, I love going to theater. I'm not an actor myself or anything. As I said, I like design. I'm more of the kind of architect design kind of stuff. But I love, any kind of the arts and exploring, what it means to people and seeing how people express themselves. I think it's really interesting, how people express themselves. So
Absolutely. And I think there's something, I mean, I love film, I love all of that, but there's something very singular and specific about theater of sitting in a close, dark space with actual people and an actual person in front of you doing a thing that creates a whole other, I mean, not that sitting in a movie can't also be like this great shared experience, but there is nothing like live theater. And I think it is the most profoundly, potentially connecting sort of experience that people can have. And that's of great interest to me.
Yeah. I think, thinking of like, if I had read this, if your story had been a book, if I had read the book, or if it had been a movie, if I had watched the movie, or if I had seen the play, which I did, like how those different forms, what it would have invoked inside of me.
Sure.
And I think like at the play, you get such a more intimate connection with the person that you're watching. I think it's really cool kind of aspect of people, I don't know, expressing themselves and, watching people express themselves, I think is really cool part of life.
And and a part of, this particular show, the fact that it's not, you're not pretending that the audience is not there. I am very much addressing the audience.
Yeah, that's true.
And that there were so many specific moments of, me looking directly at people asking a question, or sharing a moment, or, and that was just huge. I mean, to be able to like look someone in the eye, that
I believe you pointed at me at one point.
That fed me gigantically.
Yeah.
To have that connection, and it made the very profoundly emotional moments that happen. I discovered that, by looking directly at someone in the audience, it just like flared up a completely real, true, honest, extremely powerful emotional response. Whereas if I were not doing that, it would have felt a little graspy, of like, which is the worst thing in the world, to like feel like you're, acting. That's the worst thing that there is. And so, there was something about this particular piece that it almost felt like cheating in a way. It was like, oh, you mean if I look at people, then this happens? Wow, that's pretty wild. Okay, I'll use that.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah.
I know I didn't really think about that. Is like when you go to, theater, you're not usually engaged with with the actors on stage, but
No.
yeah, that's I mean, I saw you do it and stuff, but yeah, I didn't really
Right.
think about that. Yeah, super cool. Well, thank you so much for joining me.
Absolutely. I hope I was helpful in answering a little bit of
Yeah,
information about that. And
yeah, I'd love to just kind of finish with last
sure,
question of
absolutely.
if there's anybody that's influencing you these days, like it can be like an artist or some kind of theater production or something that you feel is like moving you right now.
Yes, I mean, as far as like this particular iteration, like this kind of show, the big primary people are uh, Fleabag, Phoebe
Hmm.
Waller-Bridge's
Yeah.
theater, her theatrical version of that, which is what started with it before she ever did the show.
Wow, I've never seen it.
It's amazing, and it is
Okay.
her in a chair, and
Yeah.
that's it. And I saw that actually after I had done my first reading. I saw it,
Hmm.
and I was like, ooh, neat. I mean, not like, oh, I discovered, but it's like when there's that kismet of like, oh yeah, like that vibe. Hannah Gadsby.
Yeah.
Hannah Gadsby is another one. I just think she is so remarkable in her, one person telling a story, doing the thing. Tig Notaro is someone else who I just totally love as far as like her deadpan, dry
Hmm.
uh, expression of all that. But those three women, a lot,
Cool.
super
I
inspired.
like it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll have to definitely look up the theatric Fleabag.
Well,
I've watched the show, but yeah,
yeah. Well,
cool.
she did it at the Edinburgh Fringe Festival
Oh
as a
wow, okay.
one-person show, and that was how
Mhm.
she was discovered. That's how all of that happened,
Wow,
was that. But the
cool.
National Theatre in London, they do theatrical, like one day only, like you can see the Metropolitan Opera, or you can see, like, you can go to
Mhm.
an Edwards Theatre and like see, you know, uh Benedict Cumberbatch in Frankenstein. I mean, you can see like filmed versions of shows that they've done. And so the National
Mhm.
Theatre has done that. So it's not available streaming. There's like no way that you can just watch it. But I heard that I think as of June or July of this year that some of the Edwards they're going to do like another like one day they'll show Fleabag.
Huh.
So that was the only way that I saw it
Wow.
was that.
Yeah.
So
Cool.
anyway, keep your eyes peeled.
Yeah, for sure. I
Yeah.
will. I'm always down to, um, yeah, see anything. And I'm really glad that I took a chance and came to see your show. So
I'm super
I,
glad that you did too.
I applaud you. I think it was awesome, and I think
Thank
it
you.
will move much more people than who you've already moved before. So
That's great. Thank you. I really
yeah,
appreciate that. And I'm glad that you reached out, and it was a delight to put eyes on you and get to meet you. And
yeah,
I really appreciate you reaching out.
yeah. Well, good luck in October, and maybe I will see you around Ketchum or Boise.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks so much.
All right. Thank you, Janine.
Bye.
Bye.